Hello, and I'd like to welcome you all to our Lunch Club Travel Edition, where for the month of July 2025, we'll be looking at railroads each week here on Wednesdays. Last week we did Harriet Tubman, Fourth of July, and the Underground Railroad, and today we'll be looking at the golden age of rail travel, where it was really at the forefront of its development. So I really look forward to learning about this with you all, and please feel free to share and just keeping the mics in mind, but please feel free to unmute and mute and share any comments or what you learned. And we love to hear from everyone that's on the call. Every one of yours opinions and reactions and comments are so important and valuable. So thank you so much. The golden age of rail travel, roughly spanning from the late 19th century to the mid 20th century, marked a period where passenger trains were the dominant force in long distance travel. This era saw the rise of luxurious Pullman cars, the development of dining cars, and the establishment of famous routes that connected cities and offered a unique travel experience. So from the late 1800s to the mid 1900s, um, that's when rail travel was the golden age. Has anyone heard of this term before our session today?
No, I haven't.
I heard of Pullman cars.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
heard about the Pullman car porters. They were
Mm-hmm.
black people mainly. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember if you got a Pullman car job, that was a good job. It was an excellent job for you to have.
Mm-hmm.
Working as a Pullman porter.
Oh, I love that. Snaps for that, Geraldine, because
Uh-huh.
that's definitely a part of the whole idea, the Transcontinental Railroad, the Pullman company, the Pullman cars. Yes, that all encompasses this time period. So it was really
Mm-hmm.
interesting to look at those things. So
Mm-hmm.
that is what we will be discussing and overviewing today. So, but first, we always got to have a great foundation before we go and dive deep into the topic. So, what about trains? How long have trains been in existence? And for most people, they think it's much longer we've had trains than people really think. So, I thought this video was very interesting. Again, make sure you take your notes if you'd like, and we'll chat about this video after we watch it.
The time has come to talk about trains. An integral part of transporting goods and people across the globe, trains have braved the most difficult and remote portions of the world, all in service of getting things where they need to go. There are many different types of trains, more than we could discuss in a single video, so today we'll be looking at the evolution of two major categories, passenger and freight trains. From humble beginnings to cross-country behemoths, this is the history of trains. We begin in Germany in the 16th century. Although there were no locomotives back then, according to the Institute for Transportation at Iowa State University, wooden rails which were placed along dirt roads helped wagon trains to more easily navigate the countryside. These rails were called wagonways, and they were the beginning of the modern railroading system as we know it. Eventually, wooden rails became iron ones, and the system spread throughout Europe. But these wagon trains were still being drawn by horses, who could only go so fast and for so long. There was a need, as humanity often liked to do, to go faster and for longer distances. Enter Richard Trevithick, the first person to use the steam engine on a railway. He improved on earlier stationary designs, and his idea would eventually become widespread when another man, George Stephenson, produced his rocket locomotive. According to the American Association of Railroads, North America first got into the railway game in 1827, with the United States taking the lead, and by 1838, rails extended from New England to as far west as Kentucky and Indiana. It was in 1862, however, when President Abraham Lincoln officially marked the beginning of the effort to complete a transcontinental railroad across the country. The process
Abraham Lincoln. Can you believe that connection?
would take 7 years
Oh.
and was completed on May 10, 1869 in the state of Utah. The completion of the railroad marked one of the highlights of the golden age of the railroad industry. For the next 50 years, railroads would grow to over 250,000 miles of track by the time of World War I.
Look at all the tracks.
During both World Wars, trains were instrumental in transporting people and materials across the United States and around the world. Unfortunately, one of the darkest hours for the industry came when Nazi Germany used Europe's rail system to deport millions of Jews, Gypsies, people with disabilities, and other minorities to extermination camps during the Holocaust. The Allied forces fought back, however, using trains to supply major operations like D-Day in 1944. Both the First and Second World War also saw an increase in female railroad workers due to the enlistment of men in the military, and today just under 6% of the railroad employees in the US are women. In the 1950s, the age of railroad domination slowly came to an end. With the rise of cars and air travel, new modes of transportation were becoming preferred by consumers, and Harry S. Truman would be the last president to regularly use railroads during his presidency. By the 1970s, many of the larger rail companies in the US weren't doing so well and declared bankruptcy. However, the Rail Passenger Service Act of 1970 brought a major innovation for passenger rail travel, an organization whose name combines the words America and track. That's right, it's Amtrak. Amtrak, along with freight train routes such as Union Pacific and BNSF, comprise the world's longest railway network, with over 150,000 miles, 250,000 kilometers, of track crisscrossing the country. Today, both passenger and freight trains are pushing the boundaries of transportation, both in regards to fuel and speed. Diesel and biofuels have replaced the traditional steam engine, and starting in Japan in the 1960s, bullet trains have spread across the country, and high-speed rail worldwide has grown substantially in the past several decades, including in Europe and more recently, the United States. In the 21st century, although many of us prefer to use cars or fly around the globe, there's still a feeling of simplistic charm to traveling the planet by rail. From horse-drawn wagonways to vibrant industrial power, railroads and trains have had an undeniable impact on how we as a society think about travel, and certainly have a bright future ahead of them. If you want to see more videos like this, leave a message in the comments and
Oh my goodness, so much learned in 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, wow, wow. Any thoughts on the video?
Those trains were kind of slow too. I remember going to Germany and I had to take a train from Germany to Belgium.
Mm.
And it was 5 hours. Oh my God. And those people are so technical. You have to be in the right seat and have your ticket. If you don't have that ticket, they'll put you off. They're so
Mm.
strict.
Mhm.
And it was an adventure. It was fun though.
That was
Oh.
amazing how they got the horses pulling the
Mhm.
cars on the train. I never knew about that till now.
Wooden rails, like wooden tracks? Me neither, Miss Doris. It kind of
Alex,
is, escapes your thoughts.
well, Alex, they used to call those plank roads back in the Midwest and even
Uh-huh.
back here in the East. You hear of the plank roads, and that's what they were talking about. And they used to line the roads because they got so muddy and full of big potholes. They used to line them with wood
Mm.
because
Mm.
wood was plentiful. And they called them plank roads.
Thank you so much for that, Lou.
My
Appreciate it.
father worked on the railroad. He was a brakeman. And we got passes. We could go anywhere on the N&W, the Norfolk and Western Railroad, anytime. And we had a pass once a year to go anywhere. And we used to travel to New York in the summer. From West Virginia to New York. That was a beautiful ride. And we always had chicken in a bag. And I never knew why. Everybody had chicken. But we had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But lunch meat was spoiled overnight without being in the refrigerator. And I said, now I know why they fix chicken. Because chicken would stay out overnight.
Mm.
And
Oh,
we
goodness.
used to ride to Ohio, to Roanoke, anywhere that the N&W rode, we rode free.
Mhm.
And I used to go everywhere. I loved the train. The train, oh my goodness, I went to Detroit one year and in Parkersburg, West Virginia, in that area, they had an observation train. It faced the mountain and they went real slow. We were so close to the mountain. And that ride was very, very nice. The scenery that you saw, I saw an old house across the way. Nobody lived in it. But I was like, wow, just to be standing.
And where did you board the train in West Virginia? What city did you start in?
In Bluefield, West Virginia.
Oh, I don't know where that is. Is that on the east side or the west side?
The southern part, right at the bottom of the map.
Oh, thank you for sharing that beautiful experience and you know your father and that that's once in a lifetime, especially back then, and to just see the nature and how it was. I'm sure that you still remember it to this day.
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I wish I could look in your brain. You know what I'm saying?
I did. Let me see if I'm on mute.
No, you're fine, Geraldine.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that President Lincoln was instrumental in expanding the railroad. That's the first.
Okay.
I didn't know he did anything else but have the Civil War. I never knew he expanded the railroad.
Oh yeah, I mean, he did quite a bit. So
Yeah, he did quite a bit.
yeah, so I would be inspired to do more research, of course, on what his all the different things. I think there's so much to each person in history, and
Hmm.
we're so conditioned to think about maybe one thing for a person, but like Harriet Tubman, she was also a spy. She was also this. She was also that. She was, so there's always more than meets the eye, you know.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, when I didn't know that either. So when I watched it, I was like, oh wow, our history is so connected with each other. That's why it's
Hmm.
important to learn it, you know? So thank you so much, you guys. We're going to take a look at an article next. I thought this was quite interesting from the National Park Foundation. And just reading about the golden age of rail travel. So mainly for this map right here. But yeah, at one point, well, of course, during the golden age of rail travel, railroads were one of the only ways for vacationers to experience the wonder of the new national parks in the West. It was considered a vanishing frontier. These parks were a place of awe and astonishment. As people rushed to visit these parks, many railroads, including the Union Pacific Railroad, advocated for the formation of the National Park Service to preserve that landscape for their passengers. So look at that. Rail travel and our national parks have a connection with each other too. Who knew that? Take a look at this map. Summer's top vacations. Escorted all expense tours to the magnificent wonderlands of the West. So look at this old school map. If I zoom in, look at Utah, Nevada, Oregon, Washington. That looks really fun in Washington. Idaho. Look at that, everyone. Isn't it a blast from the past? Look, this is called Zion. I think it says Briar Grand Canyon. Yeah, never heard of that specifically. So I think that's so interesting. Isn't this a cool map?
Hmm.
Yes. At the same time, it's important to recognize that the transformative nature of railroads, yes, something that's was not done before, was something that could be both beneficial and detrimental, depending on the community to which you belong. For settlers, the railroad was a lifeline, bringing supplies and providing increased communication and connection to the rest of the country. But for Native Americans living in the path of construction, the railroad represented the end of a way of life. Hmm. That's a I never really thought about it like that. For 19th century immigrants to the U.S., the railroads provided much needed employment, mobility offering, a standard of living better than they could in crowded urban centers. These railroads provide increased connection for tribal nations living on reservations and were eventually a source of employment for these isolated communities. It's this power of transformation that Union Pacific says makes studying railroad history so important and fascinating. That makes so much sense. Just taking a look through these pictures, we're going to definitely watch some more videos. But look, the workers take a load of poles to construction site for Grand Canyon Lodge, circa 1928. So this was Grand Canyon, almost 100 years ago. Look how they were creating it, building it. These pictures. Can you imagine being up there, you guys?
No.
No way.
No way.
But look how it ended up.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Look at the architecture. I mean,
Mhm.
back then in the the 20s, 100 years ago, I mean, just that's not too long, but it still makes you think, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, as destination travel, there were sing-alongs between the services. I never knew that the National Park Service had sing-alongs in this way. Employees at some parks offer talent and other variety shows. This was more like a modern cruise ship experience than the more a la carte experiences visitors choose from today. Oh wow, so they made it like a show. How interesting.
Mhm.
The connection between our national parks to our railroads and just us for to think about the impact their railroads had on everyone living in our country. So everyone from the workers to the to the Native Americans to nature to. I hope that connection is interesting.
Yeah, that is.
Thank you, thank you. So yes, here's another film on the golden age of trains. So again, some additional commentary and information. So this one's a bit of a longer one. So have your snack ready, have your water ready, and hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much.
You've heard of the golden horn of plenty, traditional symbol of prosperity and of good things bestowed upon mankind.
I hope you guys like the old school film. I certainly love it.
Here was the United States 100 years ago, a new nation of vast distances where opportunity awaited those who had the courage and initiative to seize it. In the 1840s and 50s, this young America was extending its boundaries across the continent. New lands were acquired, new territories were opened, new frontiers were established. No question of America's bigness in those early years. But that very bigness had in it the weakness that threatened the economic hopes of our young nation. What good were these new hopes that beckoned across almost endless stretches of land when our people could reach them only by travel on horseback or covered wagon trains across vast prairies? The rigors of stagecoach travel on washed-out trails, or the slow, tedious journeys down rivers and canals. As in every period of crisis in the economic growth of America, men of enterprise and foresight arose to meet the challenge. They built the railroads, a new form of transportation that saw shining rails supplant the tortuous trails of the wagon train, and engines of steam carry people and goods on a silver highway that was destined to lead America to industrial greatness. The railroad reached into every corner of the land. It provided a growing America with a spark to light the torch of progress. It was the dynamic force needed to transform a vigorous, sprawling country into a rich and powerful nation. New inventions spurred the continuing advance of our industrial needs, and in the vanguard of these achievements was the automobile. The early horseless carriage gave little indication of the tremendous popularity it was to enjoy,
Look at that.
or the vital effect it was to have on the American way of existence. The roads and streets that had served the horse and carriage soon became inadequate to meet the demands of automobile travel. The passing years brought successive road building programs initiated on local, state, and national levels. As roads were built, the number of motor vehicles using these roads increased at an accelerated pace. Today, we are still faced with the need for safer, better highways to support our motorized economy. One segment of that economy, the rising industry of motor freight carriers, has a particular interest in adequate highways because it depends on them for the speed and efficiency of its operations. The number of these highway freight carriers and the number of vehicles they operate also have steadily increased, brought about largely through the building of new plants in outlying sections of industrial areas where direct rail service is not readily available. Of course, the motorist feels that he too has more than a passing interest in the cost and upkeep of our highway system. Yet really adequate highways and access routes are a long way from reality. Here is an extreme example. The road is blocked. Traffic is at a standstill. Here is another road, a railroad. One of its characteristics is excess capacity, the ability to take on more of the transportation load. Both railroad men and representatives of common carrier trucking companies believe our transportation system will benefit by putting trucks on that steel highway and carrying them between cities on railway flat cars.
Isn't that an innovation right there, you know? There's all
Ah, yeah.
train tracks, but there's only
Yeah,
one or
sure.
two roads, right?
Oh, she's gonna put you back in that plate.
Isn't that, Sandra, were you saying something? Okay, thank you so much.
And what flat cars? Giant new 75-footers that carry 2 large trailers each. Yes, piggyback is what the railroad and progressive trucking companies are offering to the traffic manager with a job of transportation on his hands. And it isn't a new, untried idea. As long back as the last century, the Long Island Railroad brought in wagon loads of potatoes on flat cars. Look closely, and you'll see that the horses rode in boxcars on the same train. This new type of service soon spread to other railroads, and in the years that followed, piggyback transport received great impetus. Some railroads offering this type of service have used and still use their own truck trailers. But the most dramatic recent growth has been in the type of piggyback transport available to common carrier truckers, as exemplified by the Pennsylvania Railroad's truck train service. Here, on America's largest railroad, the future of truck train may well be determined. And just what is truck train? Well, for a first-hand look at this most recent step in the progress of American transportation, let's make the trip on a fast freight truck train. Our trip starts at the shipper's plant. This particular truck is carrying merchandise from Chicago to New York. The driver picks it up as per instructions, and after sealing the door of the van, he begins the journey across Chicago to the railroad yards in the south side of the city. The terminal point in Chicago, as in most large cities, is accessible from many different routes. This advantage enables the driver to use such roads and streets as are less likely to be congested with traffic. Upon arrival at the yard, the trailer is driven onto a scale where it is weighed to make certain it conforms to the required standards. It is also checked for height. A steel band is placed across the door. And while the driver checks the trailer in, the steel band is sealed in place. Having obtained his receipt for the shipment, the driver moves his truck out promptly to make room for the next arrival. As his last part in the operation, the driver takes his trailer to the loading yard located on railroad property. In this area, he parks it close to the ramp among other trailers waiting to be loaded. The driver leaves his trailer and returns to the trucking company. Flat cars are specially built for this service, each one large enough to hold 2 big trailers. Now, another driver hooks up to our trailer. He is a specialist in loading the trailer onto the flat cars and will place the trailer on the string of cars assigned to carry it to its destination.
You know the amount of driving skills you have to do to be able to back that whole truck, you know, the behind that way.
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. I would have knocked over everybody.
It's amazing that you have to really know how to drive.
Me
The
too.
string of cars assigned to carry it to its
But look,
destination.
like, my goodness.
Wow.
Like, he did that so smooth.
His trained eye heads it up the ramp straight for the bridging plates to the flat cars.
Like, you gotta line it up with
Then
the
down along
the
between the
track.
limits of the flat car railings.
That's a
The
skill.
tires roll straight to their mark. Wheel
Wow.
chocks are immediately placed to prevent movement of the trailer. And special supporting jacks are swung into position while retaining chains are tightened.
Wow.
Regular truck tractors
Don't
may be used to load the trailers,
Right.
or they may have the newly developed twin steering wheel. This enables the driver to look straight ahead of him, regardless of the direction in which he is traveling. Once more, a trailer travels with precision down the waiting line of flat cars. The hook of a retaining chain firmly grips the heavy guardrail as other wheel chocks slide snugly to the tires. With swift efficiency, the loading team is soon ready to move on to the next arrival. For at loading time, the trailers pour in a steady stream. Before the train departs from the loading track, every trailer is examined to make sure it is securely in place. It is late Saturday afternoon in Chicago as this fast freight train pulls out eastbound for New York via Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
That's a long trip.
Out of Chicago through the night, rolling across Indiana, and then into Ohio and across Pennsylvania, headed for Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and New York. Clear track ahead on its own all-weather roadway. Long before dawn on Monday, arrival in Jersey City of this train that left Chicago late Saturday. Long before dawn on Monday, arrival in Jersey.
I mean, someone had to build all these tracks. Like, that's just amazing. Chicago to Pittsburgh to Philly to New York. Someone built,
Mhm.
they ran and they worked. It's just amazing.
City of this
Mhm.
train that left Chicago late Saturday. 900 miles in transit. Early second morning
Wow.
arrival and cargo ready for delivery at final destination on the East Coast. The trailers are released from their moorings and wheel chocks. Away they go to their various delivery points in New York and other cities. Let's follow ours on the last lap of its journey. Here it is at the receiving platform of the consignee in New York and ready for unloading. The last step in Operation Truck Train. What we have just seen is the merging of public service by the railroad and the common carrier truck. What are the benefits? Joint participation enables the trucking company to concentrate its employees on sales and service in a terminal area and permits the railroad to assume the responsibilities of the fast, long-haul operations which characterize truck train service. It thus strengthens two segments of our important common carrier system. In like manner, it enables trucking company personnel and railroad employees to share in a growing form of transportation, with increasing opportunities as this type of freight shipment serves more and more terminal points, carries more and more trailers, and an increasing variety of goods. To the shipper, truck train service offers still another form of transportation competing for his business, one with obvious advantages to meet his needs for fast, high-quality service on a large scale. To all interested in the adequacy of our highway system, this form of transportation offers the possibility that, as it grows, it will contribute in some measure to lessening the burden on our road system of steadily mounting over-the-road motor traffic. For the railroads offer clear passage on their own roadway. On this roadway, day and night, in good weather and bad, truck train traffic is scheduled and routed to provide high-speed, dependable transportation service. These, then, are some of the benefits flowing from the present trend toward shipment of trailers on rail. Benefits that will become even greater as this new type of freight transport develops in range and scope. In effect, a cooperative working arrangement between the railroads and the trucking companies of America. It is in the true spirit of the opening of new frontiers that has made ours a great nation. It is true progress in transportation, progress that will help all of us.
1955.
Yeah.
Wow.
I imagine they still do it that way.
Oh, trains are still, they're very, very vital. I mean, they transport so many different things. And even more people now. I mean, even that's 55, it's 2025, so 70 years. In 70 years, we've grown so much as a, nation and as a country. So they're even more vital. That's how we get a lot of our goods that we get from the stores and the,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, they still ship oranges up from Florida on the trains. You can see them sometimes going up past Kenilworth Avenue 295.
Mm-hmm.
You can see them
Yeah.
there. And
Mm.
then coming from Union Station, they're underground. Most of the trains are underground, like subways, but they're not subways, they're actual trains.
Mm-hmm.
And they're underground until they get to a certain place and then they pop up. And you like,
Mm-hmm.
I used to travel from here to Philly a lot on the
Yeah.
train, on Amtrak.
Mm-hmm.
In Philadelphia, they have the regular trains too. They still go from. Last year, I went there with a friend, and we traveled from where we were to the market. It's like 2 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
got Philly sandwich. Wow, I was excited.
Oh yeah, cheesesteak is so good.
Yeah.
Philly cheesesteak.
Baltimore has a train,
Uh-huh, they
Mhm.
sure do.
and I caught from Baltimore to DC.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then they
On the
got the
trains, they had the freight trains.
Mm-hmm.
And in West Virginia, they used to catch the guys used to catch the freight train. I know my brother used to take it. And I had a great uncle that used to take the freight trains all the time. And he must have died on it because nobody know when he died.
Oh, wow.
And I always look inside of you can't really see inside of a freight train. I couldn't, I was too short. And then the coal trains,
Cold
they would
train.
go from station to station.
Oh, yeah.
And when I lived down there in the coal mining town, the coal trains would just come through, be real long. And you just know not to be around that train, especially in
Oh.
a car, because you couldn't get over until it went through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then another thing, they had the cabooses on almost every train.
Yes,
yeah.
I remember the caboose. I
Right.
remember that. I remember the caboose. Well, do you remember hobos? Anybody heard that name?
Yes.
Hobo.
They're-
You remember
they're-
hobos?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
They
Okay.
were like
Yep.
They were like the homeless people.
Yeah, and they would ride the train.
Yep.
They get off the train though, and ask, knock on your door for food. You give them food. We always gave them food,
Right.
and then they get back on the train.
Train is interesting to me.
I used to hitchhike a lot when I was in school, and there's a whole community that traveled by railroad, the hobos, like you're saying.
The
But a lot of them
hobo.
weren't, but they weren't hobos. A lot of them are just like regular folks, and they got
Okay.
so good. They got so good at catching the train that they just used that for transportation because they
Oh.
really knew they knew the departure times, they knew their arrival times. It was like they're commuting by freight train. A lot of them, they were not hobos. They were like ordinary folks. And a lot of riding
Okay.
trains. A
Yeah.
lot of them were a lot of them were like homeless, but a lot of them weren't like homeless.
Mm-hmm.
They were all in the movies. There's always the scene of the freight train and then sitting on the side. There's
Mm-hmm.
whatever movie did that scene. But yeah, they're so iconic. And I love that comment in the chat. Thank you. Miss Terry said, "Wow, these facts are taking me back many years. My children's father attended CDL training for 18-wheelers a long time ago." So yes, it's right. It's right there. It's right there up that alley, Miss Terry. So thank you so much for sharing.
Early in the mornings, I went to New York and I took the train back. And it was early in the morning, and they don't turn on the lights. They ask you to be quiet or you can sleep. Coming to DC. All these workers are coming to DC.
Oh
And I
yeah.
was like, wow. And when I was younger, and I loved coming on the train because it would stop at Union Station and I would go outside just to see the Capitol building. And that was interesting to me.
Right there, Union Station, and it's right there. It's there's a lot of Union stations all over the country, so that's where like one of the main train stations are. So if you're in another state and you hear about Union Station, you already know it's like the main point for a lot of places. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing, and I learned so much from you guys as well. So thank you. We just did look at that history, but I think it's so important. Like Ms. Geraldine mentioned the Pullman workers. I think it's so important to look at this topic, the Black road workers that built America. So this is again really informational. I learned a lot from this video. I hope you guys do as well. Okay.
The image of the African American railroad worker is a staple in the cultural history of America. The face of the black Pullman porter was in railroad advertising for years. The porter became a recognizable character in American art and music. And in the early days of Hollywood, black actors portraying train attendants and porters were one of the few images of African Americans we ever saw in the movies. But the link between African Americans and the growth of American railroads is much deeper than carrying luggage or preparing a sleeping car. In a new book that's lushly illustrated with many never-before published photos, we learn about the extent of what railroads meant to black Americans in terms of employment, culture, travel, and civil rights. My guest is Theodore Kornweibel. He's SDSU Emeritus Professor of African American History. His book is called Railroads in the African American Experience, A Photographic Journey. And it's a pleasure to welcome you, Ted, to These Days.
Good to be here.
Now, we'd like to invite our audience to join the conversation. If you have a story about the African American experience, and Ted, I have to tell you, congratulations on this book. It's just really a remarkably beautiful book.
It is. It is. It should win a design award.
Yes, it actually should. In going through the book, I personally was surprised to learn that African Americans started their work on the railroads during slavery. Tell us how that came about.
The entire Southern railroad network that was built during the slavery era was built almost exclusively by slaves. Some of the railroads owned slaves during the
You see where that's at? It says Fairfax, there's Alexandria, there's DC, there's Montgomery, Loudoun County. So it's right here at home.
slavery era was built almost exclusively by slaves. Some of the railroads owned slaves, other railroads hired or rented slaves from slave owners. And the most shocking thing that I found was that women, as well as men, were actually involved in the hard, dangerous, brutal work of railroad construction, and continued to work for railroads after they were built in lesser roles. But in the construction phase, little difference between the abilities, considered abilities for black women, and white women would never have been considered for any of those jobs.
Now, one of the first stories you tell in this book is the story of Rose. She's a slave who belonged to the man who was contracted to build the Charleston and Savannah Railroad. Tell us about her. How did her life change when she was ordered to join this railroad effort?
Well, there's a fascinating series of letters from her owner to other individuals, and we can piece together Rose's story quite well through that. And she apparently had been a domestic servant living in a not a terribly wealthy, but an urban household in the more moderate climate parts of South Carolina.
Mm-hmm. What year are we talking about?
Talking about the 1858, 59, shortly before the Civil War.
Right.
And she had been accustomed, actually, to domestic work, so she probably was a cook, because that's what she was later put to. She would have had kitchen utensils. She would have been able to go every morning to the daily market to pick up fresh produce and so forth, a garden perhaps. She was sent several hundred miles distant to the coastline, where this railroad was being built through swamps It was a brutal building project that for miles and miles they had to actually build on pilings. There wasn't
Look at this, Harper's Weekly. What does it say? March 15th, 1863. I think that's what it says. Wow.
solid ground. And she found herself a cook with crude utensils, with just the bare
A railroad through the swamps. There's a swamp, there's the railroad. Amazing.
flour, lard, bacon, molasses, cooking for a mixed group of enslaved black and some Irish railroad workers. The only woman there, isolated, vulnerable, and
Completely out of her element.
completely out of her element.
Yes. Now, you mentioned something that I found extremely interesting, that these so-called hired slaves were working on the railroad side by side by laborers who were being paid for their work on the railroad. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. Both free blacks as well as white workers. There were some categories of work in which both slaves and free persons worked, like brakemen, like firemen, stoking the firebox on a steam locomotive. Other jobs, like maintaining the track, were almost exclusively the province of black workers. And what's significant here is that the pattern set during slavery, what jobs blacks could and could not do, no, that's the wrong way of putting it, what blacks were allowed to do or not allowed to do, that then became the national pattern after the Civil War.
Oh, I see. I'm speaking with Ted Kornweibel. He is SDSU Emeritus Professor of African American History. He is also the author of a new book, Railroads in the African American Experience. And we are taking your calls at 1-888.
Building project in which
of African American History, is also the author of a new book, 7. Ted, how did you find this out? Is there a lot of information about on slavery during the beginning of the railroad era?
Well, there's actually quite a bit of information. Much of it comes from the railroad's annual reports that were prepared for stockholders, because they would list the assets, they would list the expenses. So they would list the number of slaves who were in various categories, how much they had paid to rent them, or if they purchased them, what the value of those slaves were, if there were fatalities, what that was in the loss column. So the railroad's annual reports reveal a great deal.
Now, after the Civil War, when ex-slaves were paid workers for the railroad, as you say, some of the jobs stayed the same for a long time. But what was the attraction of the railroads for freed slaves?
That's a good question. The railroads were the best in the South, were the best alternative to escaping two worse fates. Either agriculture, which often meant sharecropping, which meant you were in debt year after year after year, or domestic service. The railroads were the most important industry that blacks ever worked in. Blacks worked more blacks were railroaders than were steel workers, were coal miners, were loggers. You pick the industry. That African Americans participated in railroading, and in a wide sense, more than any other industry. So this is the African American industrial experience.
Yes, I understand your point.
And for Southern blacks especially, to be able to get, it was low pay, but to get a steady job, steady income. There's a blues that says, when you marry a railroad man. Every day Sunday, $1 in your hand.
Now, I have to ask you, if I may, Ted, about the incredible amount of photographs and illustrations you have in your book, Railroads.
I mean, just take a look at these pictures, you guys. They're amazing. I mean, this is real life examples.
In the African American experience. How did you compile these images? Where did you find them?
Well, one source was eBay.
Ah. So you just put out the call, huh?
Well, I didn't put out the call. I just combed for months and months. I just combed every day under searching under railroads, blacks, African Americans, and I found some absolutely fantastic photographs. I shot them all through Photoshop to clean them up.
Sure.
But you'll find many never before seen, never before published photographs in this book.
You have African American workers working on the tracks. You have them as porters. You have even photographs of African American nannies on the train taking care of children while as part of their duties as being nannies to the children themselves.
Those were the Pullman maids, and Pullman maids only served at most half of the length of period that Pullman sleeping car porters did. But beginning in the early 1900s, and the heyday being the luxury travel of the 1920s, only the most luxurious...
Take a look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Application for employment.
Mm-hmm.
This woman was 114 pounds, 5 foot, 5.5 inches. Beauty something. Wow.
Trains had Pullman maids, and they assisted especially lady passengers or women with children. They were expected to be able to give manicures, to dress hair, assist ladies with the bath, assist with small children. Some of them were nurses and might be called upon for assistance like that. But some of the touching images are, and they're posed images of these maids with white children and entertaining them and showing them the scenery and so forth.
And as you say, they are posed. How did you happen, Ted, to take on this project?
Well, I've been a lifelong rail fan, so railroads have always been fascinating to me. And about 18 years ago, I received a call from a railroad museum in Pennsylvania asking if I knew of anyone that they could bring in to give a talk on black railroaders. And I said, I didn't know, but I do some bibliographic search, see if there's somebody out there who could do that. And I turned up nothing. So I gave them a call and said, if you can stand an amateurish presentation with some slides copied from books, I'll do it for you. And I did, and the response was very, very positive, that blacks in the audience, whites in the audience, everybody recognized that this was a buried history of railroad, a buried part of railroad history, that people knew about the Pullman porters and the dining car waiters, and that was it. There's so much more.
Now, you were a professor of African American Studies for many years at SDSU. Ted, you are not black, so how did that come about?
Well, I was involved in the civil rights movement in the 1960s, and that gave me passion and principles that directed me towards that. But what really sealed my passion for African American history was my first teaching job, which was at a still segregated all-black state college in Texas, Prairie View A&M College. And I began to read in the library so that I could teach some black history to my students, and I got the bug.
And it hasn't left you, and it's ended up right now in this beautiful book. Let me go back to the experience that you're talking about, or African Americans in the railroads. As you say, it's not all Pullman porters. One of the most dangerous jobs on the railroad was that of brakeman. How were trains actually stopped before automatic air brakes?
That's a great question. I never thought about that.
Well, before automatic air brakes and before modern safety coupler knuckles, trains had to be stopped. Trains of any length had to be stopped by brakemen on individual cars, turning a brake wheel to engage the brakes when the car had slowed or it had gotten from the station and was starting up again. They had to manually turn that brake wheel the opposite direction. Now, a train out in the country in the middle of winter, you had to hop from top to top of freight cars and manually turn these brakes, then manually turn them off. It was extremely dangerous. The brakemen fell off. They fell between cars and were crushed. It was the air brake was probably the single most important safety feature ever developed.
And those early brakemen, was that one of the jobs that African Americans were quote unquote allowed to do?
In the South, that was a job that was pretty much preferred for blacks. It was defined for many years as a black man's job. Now, when automatic couplers came in and air brakes, those jobs became more attractive to whites. And so at that point in history, early 20th century, whites began to push blacks out of those occupations.
Before we have to take a break, let me sneak in one.
I thought this was so informative, and those pictures, they had not been seen by many. Any thoughts on this video or anything they talked about? But it was so interesting.
Yeah, they talked about the Pullman car porters. As I said before, that was a job that blacks would love to have back in the day. And if you said you were a Pullman car porter, man, that was something. So yeah, those jobs on the train pay. He said they were low paying jobs, but they were higher paying than anything else. So that was a good job to work on the train.
Yeah, it's very multifaceted, as they said. So like they said, they were allowed to do that. It's like
Yeah, they were allowed.
yeah, they didn't have a choice, but as they talked about, they thought that was more attractive or better than agriculture, due to those circumstances. So would you rather be on the train or, in agriculture? I mean, that's
Plus, your family got free passes. They could go anywhere.
oh yeah, I mean, but maybe not that's this a while ago, so I'm not sure how things specifically like work. This was 1850s, right? 1880s, right? Or
Yeah,
early 20th century. So maybe so, but especially those the I was surprised to hear the Pullman, the maids, they were expected to give manicures and hairdo stuff,
yeah. I didn't know about that.
nurses.
And they'll
So,
probably mention A. Philip Randolph, who unionized the sleeping car porters on the
uh-huh.
railroad.
Mhm.
A. Philip Randolph.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Philip Randolph. Yes, yes, indeed.
there was so many things I wanted to share today, but we only have so much time. But I definitely I read about that, and it's just wow, more people need to know or be aware. But I hope you guys this video was so interesting and very much
And,
enlightening.
and I like the title, "The Black Railroad Workers That Built America." I like that title.
Yes.
Oh, they definitely did, and in a just a future thing, or just and there's a whole bit about the Chinese immigrants also doing the
Right, the Chinese on the railroads
yeah,
too.
so it's not just one, but it's all. But as you can see, there's like disparities with that. So we have a very colorful history. That's what I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot more than meets the eye. So thank you all so much. Yeah, there's the free pass. Yeah, this was again started 1850s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Yeah, that was so we're talking about quite almost 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Our last section for today is this website here. I'm gonna put in the chat for you guys, but this is the Washington, D.C. chapter of the National Railway Historical Society. So I never heard of this organization, but look at some history. These are some major railroads serving DC in 1950. So if you look at any of these and recognize these, yes, Atlantic Coast Rail, Baltimore and Ohio Railroad,
I
B&O.
recognize B&O.
Richmond, Frederick, Potomac, Rep, Seaboard Airline Rail. I've never heard of that. Southern Railway, C&O Railway. Okay, we heard
B&O,
C&O,
I've
right?
heard of that.
West Pullman, very, yeah, one of the most recognizable. Railway Express Agency. And then we just looked at the video from the Pennsylvania Railroad one, today
Mm-hmm.
too. So look at that. It's a Union Station. DC is steeped in history. The first railroad came to town before the Civil War when B&O arrived. There are literally hundreds of volumes, information on the rich and stored history. Yeah, so the Union, look at Union Station.
Yeah, so bright.
I know, right? So this website has a lot of great information. So take a look at some of these right here. I would look, in the link right there. But look at that. So at First Street Tunnel. Look at that picture. Amtrak was about a year old when this picture of train number 50, the eastbound James Whitcomb Riley, was taken as it was to enter the First Street Tunnel at the south end of Washington Union Station. The train originated the day before in Chicago, and like today's successor, the Cardinal, it ran daily. Oh wow. Oh yeah, here's some more. Let's lesser known facts. What's this? Again, you click the link and it takes you to another option. Railroad landmarks in the district. We'll take a look at that. Many large towns such as Washington, Chicago, Kansas City, LA have or had Union Station. It's often called Union Station if it served more than one railroad. That's why that's called Union Station. So if you think about our Union Station as Amtrak, it has MARC, and it has the Metro, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's Union Station, because it has more than one railroad that it services.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
Washington, Chicago, Kansas City, Los Angeles. Many states and towns have Union stations. So not just DC. I didn't know that either.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Pullman, but did you know luggage sizes? There are suitcases that are known as Pullmans. They have the standard height that would fit under a Pullman berth in a railroad sleeping car.
Mm.
And in
So-
New York, the train station is Penn Station. And in New Jersey, in Newark, is Penn Station. And they had the Amtrak, the New Jersey train, and it goes to New York, and it goes to Trenton. I don't know if it go to Pennsylvania.
Oh, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that, Miss Brenda. Yes, thank you for that. We got the standard gauge. So between the rails on American Railway is 4 feet, 8.5 inches. So the space between the rails on the American Railway. So everything, if you look at the train tracks, 4 feet, 8.5 inches. So yes, and then this other one right here, railroad landmarks. So again, kind of what we looked at before. Former B&O right Union Station. There's a B&O New Jersey Ave station site, B&O Pennsylvania Avenue station site, Maryland Avenue, trackage sites. There was a down under DuPont Circle. Who knew? Anacostia Tower or Virginia Avenue Tower. So these are a lot of landmarks for railroads here in DC. It would be fun.
Alex. Alex, DuPont Circle, the tracks are still there. You can go down underneath. I believe it's right at DuPont Circle.
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
can go down some to it.
Yes, now thank you. I used to be like there every week, but now I'm just saying yes, they are they are still there. So thank you for putting that puzzle in my head together.
And something else they didn't talk about, Alex, was the switchbreaker. They had to switch the tracks.
Oh yeah, they did not mention those. I love the idea of those, that
Because
work.
switching tracks was interesting to me.
Oh, it's important. It literally guided you either the right way or the wrong way.
Right. Yeah.
Important.
Yeah. Okay, and then let's look at here's again check out this link, you guys, for in the chat for all of it. But this is a full DC road history. So just looking through, first off, Washington Bridge Company, Act of Congress, Long Bridge at a toll crossing, 1835 Long Bridge rebuilt across the Potomac River. 1835, that's when the B&O opened for service. It was located at 2nd and Pennsylvania Ave, but now it's an empty site. Yeah, it sure is. 1844, first successful use of Morse code from Washington to Baltimore. The What Hath God Route was the first telegraph message sent by Morse so it's named after him, from the Supreme Court chambers in the Capitol along wires placed on poles besides the B&O Washington branch. Isn't that amazing? DC has a connection to Morse code. James Polk, first president-elect to travel by train. Andrew Jackson, first president to travel on a train from Ellicott Mills to Baltimore in 33. First, wow. Second site, New Jersey Ave and C Street Northwest. Across from the present-day Teamsters headquarters. I can imagine that area. So that was another B&O station. Looking through, Abraham Lincoln arrived via the B&O station or train for inauguration. First horse car service, 1862. Wow, going up a little bit. 1906, Potomac Yard opens. 1903, 1908, that's when the Union Station was constructed and opened at a cost of $16 million. So Union Station cost $18 million, but that was in, over 100 years ago, right? 1906, there was a train wreck at Terracotta near Fort Totten. I didn't know that. Did you all know that?
52 killed.
Yeah, that's that. I never knew that. 52 killed on train and platform, banning future wooden body passenger car construction. Wow, wow, wow. Looking at 1930s, 35s, mainline electrified train services on the PRR Washington. 35, Washington, Baltimore, Annapolis Electric Interurban Railroad abandons all operations. Wow. NRHS, that's when this organization was chartered. So 1944, almost 100 years. Looking up more recently, Sunday Navy Yard. Oh wow, yeah, the 60s. That's when a lot of changes happened, I guess. 72, last steam passenger excursion. So 50 years since the last steam engine or train came through. Mark train, 84. That's when it was applied. Wow. Can you all believe that, you guys? All this history. I will definitely take a look at this information, this website. I mean, did you all even know there was a National Railway Historical Society in DC? Look at that. Summer and fall trips, safety rules, videos, historic rail photos. I think we'll take a look at these. But look, mailing list, the wow.
Hey, Alex, does anybody on the call remember the old electric streetcars? I know there's something up near where I live in Silver Spring where they saved them and they have a little site there. But does anybody on the call remember them? Because I wasn't living here at that time.
I remember them, Lou. They used to go up and down 7th Street, 11th Street. Yeah, I remember.
Oh, yeah. So did people use those to get around? Was that the main form of transportation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they had that before the buses came.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, I remember those.
I remember on 11th Street.
Yeah.
Street Northwest 7th Street. Yeah.
The infrastructure is still probably underneath, maybe some of the concrete or, what I'm saying? It's yeah, I wish I could have rode one of those back in the day. They look, Pennsylvania Ave, just going through downtown, one of those sounds really fun. But,
well, that site I told you guys about near where I live in Silver Spring, that they actually have rides. They built a little oval track. They had to relocate it when they built the ICC, the Intercounty Connector. They had to move it, but it's still there. And no, some wealthy person must have funded it because almost nobody ever goes there, but it still operates.
Thank you so much, Lou. Well, well, that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something new. Lou, well, any overall thoughts real quick before we end? Just want to make sure we get through all of
No, one of my favorite places in this whole region is to go to old Ellicott City. That you mentioned at Ellicott Mills. because they have the original B&O station there. And I think they said it's the oldest, still original train station in the United States. It's the original B&O station. And I think the B&O was the very first train line in the United States. So it's really remarkable that they actually have one of the stations that's still there.
Thank you so
It's
much.
really remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, so today we learned about the golden age of rail travel. We looked at a brief history of trains and where they come from their origins of wooden tracks from horses to these locomotives to these full-on trains. We learned about the golden age of rail travel. We watched a retro historic film on trains and again how they came to be. And we also took a look at the Black railroad workers that built America that had a major impact on our operations even to this day. And, we always got to bring it back to DC in some way, shape, or form. So we took a look and shared the link to some DC rail history from the National Railway Historical Society, DC's chapter. It was a pleasure to present, and make sure you come out for our 1:30. But as always, every Wednesday at 12, we do a travel show, and we'll be doing railroads for this month. So next week, hop on aboard to our next train to our next destination. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Lou, for coming on, and I'm glad you made it there safe. And I will see you all soon for Module 5. And thanks so much for coming on, you guys. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Alex.
Thank you.
Alex.
Thanks, Alex. Great job.
Great
It was
job.
wonderful. We really liked it. Thank you so much. It was
Thank you.
amazing.
Everyone.
Very, very informative.
Very informative.
Hope it felt like you were on a train.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoyed
Can
it.
I ride a train today?
Yes, you could ride.
Okay.
I'm gonna get those tickets, okay? No.
Okay.
Thank you all so much. I'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.